Good evening out there. It's actually morning, I guess, if you want to be correct about it. It's actually after midnight here on Midnight's Edge After Dark. My name is Tom Connors. I'm all by my lonesome. I don't do this very often. I want to say hi to the few people out there that are listening. I don't know how many are there, two, three people maybe. Yeah, I just got back from the movie. I saw Bohemian Rhapsody tonight. There was a few more people in the theater than I expected there to be. Usually when I go to these movies anymore lately, the crowd hasn't been there. And I was actually surprised to see how many people were at what was the second show, not the first show, but the second show. And the range of people that were there was actually kind of surprising. So yeah, I'm going to talk to you guys here in the chat a little bit, but first I'm just going to give my initial thoughts on the movie. I'm not going to worry too much about spoilers because, guys, I'll tell you right off the bat, the movie ends just like you expect it to. The boat still sinks. It is what it is. You know how the movie kind of ends to a point. Uh, Now some people are going to want something different out of this movie. I'm going to say that right off the bat. Most people know that I kind of was not looking forward to this movie, so that needs to be set up front. And the reason is I'm a huge Queen fan. Like my top three bands of all time are Queen, Beatles, and Pink Floyd. And to me, Freddie Mercury is the greatest live performer, singer, what have you, however you want to call it, lead singer of all time, period. And I would say probably the greatest rock and roll moment in history, if I had to pick one, would be Queen at Live Aid. So just so you know the baggage I'm dealing with going into this movie. Yeah, picture Spinal Tap to Stan Ramos. I want to welcome all of you for joining me here. I got about 15 of you out there, so I think I'm going to kind of get started with the actual story. The story you kind of can guess. It's the story of Queen. It's how the band got together, how they worked dynamically for the first few years. It jumps a little bit. We get into the mid years. It doesn't get into the last 5 years at all. And I'll get into that a little bit. Up front, there is some inaccuracies. That is very true. There's some fictitious moments that are there for obviously dramatic reasons or story reasons. And I will say up front, I will generally give biopics a lot of leeway when it comes to having to fit a lot of historical moments into 2 hours. To this day, the best biopic I can think of that's not only probably the most chronologically correct, or at least for the most part, and captures just about everything and doesn't make up a shit ton of crap would be Man on the Moon, the Andy Kaufman biopic. So, I mean, there's maybe a handful of other ones that I could pull from right away that I like, but I know going into most of these movies, you're always going to see them from an angle that is skewed. The movie, though, is for the most part, from Freddie's point of view. I can gladly say that the earlier reports that we reported here on After Dark last year about the movie being, about just the band dealing with life after Freddie for the last half of the movie were completely inaccurate, which I'm glad. It's almost like they listened to that podcast, which is weird. Now, up front, I will say about Bryan Singer directing this, nothing about it really signifies that he did. Uh, so I don't really know how to address that part of it. I went into it not expecting to like Rami Malek at all. I know a lot of you out there listening, the whole 10 of you probably are about 27 now, I guess. I didn't think he was going to be able to pull it off. I didn't. And for the first few minutes of the movie into the first quarter, I really wasn't on board. It probably wasn't until about a third of the way in it started to really click for me. And I don't know how it did, but it just managed to win me over. Rami did great in the performance. The rest of the band members were casted perfectly. The guy they got playing Brian May is uncanny. Same thing with, just oddly enough, the guy that got playing Geldof at the end is like, I almost thought it was real footage at first till they cut away and you see the actor. I'm like, oh my god, it's not him, it's an actor. So they did a lot of great casting in this movie. I can't knock them for that. Now, this is going to get into, I guess, quote unquote spoilers. Uh, how do I put this without? Well, like I said, you can't really get into spoilers, but the inaccuracies in the movies are he didn't get realize or know he had AIDS until a couple years after they depict in the movie, but he had his suspicions, so they kind of just cut to the chase there. A lot of times that's what you'll see is a lot of cutting to the chase or kind of moving of time. Yeah, as I think I know Baghead 777 is really upset about the movie, but uh, they did push for some reason "We Will Rock You" and some of the stuff like that a little farther into the 80s than it should into the 80s when it was actually in the 70s that came out. I don't know why they did that. There's no real reason for that other than there's this major jump in the movie timeline. That's the only thing I can think of is they just pushed it in there because which is kind of fucked up because if you watch the movie, they spend the time telling the story basically of there's three kind of stories going on at the same time. You have Freddie Mercury's story, you have the band's story, and the story of, basically the two songs they tell you about the most are "We Will Rock You" and "Bohemian Rhapsody," of course. And I argued up front a long time ago that just it made more sense, and I still say they should have called the movie "We Will Rock You" because it just I don't know why it just felt right for everything about it, but it doesn't matter. Point being, those are the two songs they really kind of pinpoint and pick out to tell you about the making of more so than the rest. They do here and there. There's a great moment. The story about how they did another one bites the dust. I thought was really well played out. I'm sure fictitious moments in there, just like the first time Freddie does the thing with the microphone stand. I'm like, I doubt that's how it really happened in real life. But you got to remember this is a movie, and I do that much, at least when it comes to these kind of movies. I will give them that much that you have to be entertaining for 2 hours, and just telling a straight story isn't always going to be entertaining. And if you want the accurate depiction, go watch a documentary, of course. If you want it to be, you know, completely accurate time wise and all that kind of stuff, go watch a documentary. You're not always going to be able to do that in a movie. That being said, of course, I didn't hate the movie. I didn't. I was surprised. I didn't hate it. You even get the entire Live Aid performance. Now, there's some people who are confusing the fact that they end the film at Live Aid, that was the last time Queen performed together. Now, most people know that is not the facts, and they don't really present it that way, but I could see some people getting confused by that, but they pretty much ended the movie the exact way I said it should have ended a year ago. That is right after the performance ends, cut to a still of Freddie Mercury explaining that he died of AIDS in 1991, et cetera, which it does. It gives you an update on the rest of the band, and then it goes into the credits. I mean, I really didn't expect that much more out of the movie. I guess I did to a point, but I guess I got enough of what I needed out of it. They didn't dwell too much on the homosexuality in a sense that, yeah, you don't see dicks flying, but for what they got into a PG-13 movie, I was very, very surprised. And how they handled the relationships, I was also very surprised about. So yeah, did any of you guys in the chat get to see it? Let's see what you guys thought about it if you did. But yeah, Baghead 7, the timelines were very horribly messed with. But like I said, it was for the linear purposes of the story. I don't know why they did it that way, but maybe you could tell this movie was probably done on a lower budget, and it's probably going to work out for them in the end because there was a lot of people in the theater compared to what I thought there was going to be. So I think it's going to be a little bit bigger this weekend than they thought. But other than that, that's just kind of nitpicky shit. There's just some nitpicky stuff if you really want to get into it. They didn't meet that way, the way they show them in the movie. Again, most people who are like them know the true stories. Of course, they're going to bother you. I'm the same way, but I have to step out of my fanboy element for a moment and say, look, as a movie, does it work? Does it definitively tell the story of Queen without disrespecting the band, and also at the same time, you know, not being too wussy, I guess, for lack of a better word. And it does find that happy medium. So, I mean, let's see what you guys think. Let's see here. Not a ringing endorsement. Yeah, it's not horrible though. I would give it probably about a 7 or 8 out of 10. I mean, it's good. Do I think it's going to get any Oscar nominations? No, probably not. Um, if Rami Malek does get nominated, I'd be surprised, but he didn't do a horrible job. I was very surprised with how he handled the character. His worst acting as Freddie is as young Freddie. The flamboyantness that he kind of goes into off the bat. I don't know if those were the earlier days of filming or what, but it does seem to take him a little bit to get into Freddie's skin. But once he does, you forget it's Rami Malek. And that's what I was the most afraid of, is that through the whole movie, I'm going to see Rami Malek playing Freddie Mercury. So Ryan from the Facebook group, no, stay in your fanboy nature this time for that. It doesn't go far enough off the rails for me to bash it. Somebody brought up The Doors earlier. When you compare it to The Doors, this is probably one of the more accurate of biopics out there. It's probably about as or more accurate than like Straight Outta Compton and some of the more accurate ones. So I can't say it's a bad movie. I really can't. I enjoyed it. The jokes landed. There was some great little nods to Queen fans that will pick it up and pick them up if they're really like, and they're not like in your face to the point where you're like, ah, ha, 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 you know, like Star Wars and all that shit has been lately. And I don't want to give them away because I don't want to ruin them for people. But my favorite one, I don't know if you guys want to know, it was kind of funny. They're at a party, and in the background, Super Freak starts playing. Now, anybody who knows the history of the song Super Freak knows it's tied to Queen in a sense that both MC Hammer and Vanilla Ice were sued for the same reason, and that was basically ripping off Super Freak and Under Pressure. So to me, that was like one of those really, like, you have to think about it, but it's there. And it's not in your face like some of the other kind of nods we get in like Halloween even recently. So I kind of, the Wayne's World reference was actually pretty good. Mike Myers is great in the movie. Now his character also is very inaccurate, I guess. But again, he's one of those characters that's an amalgamized character. You're going to get these sometimes in biopics. And I don't like them, but I understand from a writer's point of view why they're there. From a screen writer's point of view, because I've done enough of it myself to know that you have to sometimes pare shit down even though you don't want to, because you cannot just get into every little I can't say the word I want to say, integral little thing, or it's going to bog the movie down. And that's where I have to weigh that on either side. Is it worth getting pissed off enough about that it ruined the movie, or was it for the better of the movie as a movie? And in this case, most cases, when it comes to the stuff that was changed in this movie, it was for the benefit of the movie. So better than Jackie Earle Haley's Freddie. David Bowie was not in the movie. They did not. I'm sure they probably filmed it. It'll probably be a deleted scene. If he was there, they didn't signify it was him. I have not seen that Kush, so I couldn't tell you. Riyadh, I know you were worried about it coming off like a VH1 movie. It was much better than that. Much better production value. It felt a bit choppy in the beginning. I will say that when they start to jump through shit pretty quick in the first half, until they slow down a little bit in the 80s. That's when I really kind of got, okay, now they needed to slow. The movie could have been a good half hour, 20 minutes longer, and I wouldn't have complained. Even though they show the entire Live Aid performance, it's still, they could have taken a little bit more time, because I don't think they did a good enough job letting us know who Freddie was growing up. That was one of my biggest gripes, because to me, it was like, to be able to appreciate what they're trying to put out there is Freddie as a person and creating this character almost. It's not a character because it's who he really is. Kind of like the whole Bruce Wayne Batman thing. It would have been nice to see a little bit of the young Shay. I know, please don't shoot me for this, but just to kind of an idea of where Freddie came from as far as his upbringing and why the way he is now is such a big deal. Okay, does that make sense? Thunder Day and the Action Man? No, it did not. Not technically. No, they. Of course, he's. You can tell he's sick, and then he goes to the doctor and finds out he has AIDS. But that happens in the movie a couple of years before it actually happened in real life. Then basically, the movie ends with the Live Aid performance. It off into three parts. There's the early years, the mid years, and then the mid years kind of slowly kind of move into the latter mid years. I know that sounds weird, but like the 85, 86 period in there, close to that area. But well, 85 was when Live Aid happened, but you know what I mean? So they kind of cover the first part of the 80s and then the latter part of that era there, just before Live Aid, because that's what kind of leads up to the ending, and it loops around, because the beginning of the movie, it starts with them just about to start their performance at Live Aid. I think they handled it pretty well. We don't need to see the degradation of Freddie. We don't need to see him falling apart. We don't need to see him dying just for some dramatic reason. And that's kind of the same thing I feel about a lot of the homosexuality and how it was handled, which was actually pretty well for a PG-13 movie, and especially they even delve into the drug use and everything else. It's kind of like Jaws. You don't always have to show everything on screen. They talk about it. A lot of stuff's insinuated, and you know what it means. It's not like it's no, Rihanna, it's not really in flashback form in a sense, because I was like, oh no, this whole movie is going to be a flashback during the whole performance. That's what I was afraid of. No, oddly enough, it starts out where they're about to start the performance, and then it cuts to a flashback, and then from there on, it's linear until they get to Live Aid again. So yeah, I honestly, they really need to set it up with Live Aid in the beginning. They could have started with something else, but you know, Baghead wanted to see Life After 86, and there's a reason you could reasonably want to, but you don't need it. That's really the main thing, is you don't need it. Yeah, CD Horde. The shark was gay in Jaws. I didn't know you knew that. You're one of the few people who did. Yeah, I know, right, Rianne? I said this movie was perfectly cast. And I don't know if the kid playing Deacon, I think that's the kid from Jurassic Park. I got to check it out. I think it is. I should have checked that before I did this, but the movie was just so well cast. I couldn't believe how well cast it was. And Malik sticks out at first, but then he kind of, after a while, you just forget it's him. He does well enough, not Oscar worthy, but it's good enough. You know, it's not like you're gonna. It's probably up there with Val Kilmer as Morrison, I'd say. So, well, wow, we got actually quite a few people in here. 49 people listen to me babble on all by myself. But yeah, that it is bookend, Rianne, but not in a way that they could have done it a little bit more. How do I put this? It doesn't really give you a good reason why it starts with Live Aid and then goes into a flashback and then linearly takes you up through the end. So they really didn't need to start with Live Aid. They could have come up with something else. I mean, there's a few things where you think they're going to go somewhere and they don't really do anything with it. So I'm interested to see what's on the cutting room floor. Um, but yeah. He was the best part of the Doors the rest of the movie. Yeah, Tyler Bioshock. I like the Doors, but I think somebody else, I think Rianne brought it up earlier that the Doors is just more of an experience than it is the story of the band. Um, well, Rianne, it's a good saying considering most of their music was recorded on linear tape. So, uh, you are right, Tom. Joseph Mazzello was Deacon. Good. Yep. Yeah, that was him. At first I didn't realize it until he cut his hair. Uh, yeah, then I realized it, and it was pointed out to me. But no, I couldn't believe how much I enjoyed it. I really didn't think I was going to. I thought I was going to hate it. The musical songs I would have loved to hear in the movie or heard a little bit more about. Some of it gets repetitive because they really, you hear Bohemian Rhapsody so many times in the movie, and maybe a few more live performances than what you would see in a lot of these movies, but that's not necessarily a bad thing because that's where Freddie shined. I mean, that was his, that was his, or where, uh, so I'm going to cover a song live now. Come on, you can do it. Philip A. Demick. I could never do a Queen song any kind of justice, I don't think. Tyler Bioshock, the audience seemed to be along with the movie. They laughed. Pretty much everybody laughed at about the same time. There's a few moments where there's some gasps. There's a few moments where there was some sniffles. There was a few moments where there was some, I don't know if we call it cheering, but you could hear people stamping their feet. And the We Will Rock You part, of course, got everybody going, I think. But yeah, so I enjoyed it. I really was surprised. An 8 out of 10, at least, maybe 7 at the worst, but belt one out, see. I would, but I could never do any. No, I couldn't do Freddie Mercury. Let's see here. Rianne, Straight Outta Compton is really the best music biopic I've ever seen, other than sort of biopics like Purple Rain or 8 Mile. Yeah. This is up there with Straight Outta Compton, believe it or not. I know you're not looking forward to this, Rianne. We've talked a lot about it in the Facebook group. But like that movie, yeah, it takes some liberties. Sure, Dre was portrayed as a goody goody. All the rest of the band members are portrayed as goody goodies. Don't get me wrong there. Uh, but yeah, it really it really wasn't that bad. It wasn't. I was expecting it to be horrible, and it was pretty good. Let's see here. So was Mike Myers actually in it? Tylon Ranger asks. Yeah. Yeah, he was in it for about 3-4 scenes. He wasn't bad in it. I mean, he's Mike Myers, Kush says, I just finished Highlander, so I was singing along to the soundtrack. Yeah, it would have been nice if they had a moment or two where they nodded to the fact that they did the soundtracks for not one, but 2 movies. They don't bring up Flash at all. They don't bring up Highlander at all, but I'm not surprised. Who Wants to Live Forever was used very well in the film. There's a lot of points where you would expect them to go for that easy heart tug, or that moment that the trailer sets it up in a way that it really isn't, I think. And I know this is really speaking to Rianne out there, that when I say this, that don't let the trailers fool you into thinking it's one kind of movie when it's not. It's a bit darker than you would think in a lot of ways. But don't get me wrong, there's a lot of humorous and light moments too. The movie at its core is about family. That is very evident. That's probably, if anything, the one thing that hits you over the head with the most. So, I mean, it's a movie. I seen kids there with their parents. I seen older people. I seen people my age. Yeah, if you take some younger kids, you're gonna have to answer some questions afterwards. But a lot of those things are not necessarily conversations that you shouldn't have with your kids. Now, of course, you may not want to have the conversation with a 6-year old. Be bright. Don't bring a 6-year old to the movie. But 8, 9, 10 is probably old enough to see this and really, at least if they don't understand everything, the conversation you have afterwards might be one that, later on in their life might mean something. I mean, not to sound all like fucking whatever, but Patrick Olinger, it's funny you ask if I'm going to go see the biopic for Rocket Man. They showed the preview for that in front of this, and I was just like reminded of how cringy that looks and sounds. Now, in this instance, I would say they made the right choice, but because you can't find anybody who's as good as Freddie Mercury. At least 90, if not 99.9% of what you hear in the movie is, well, I know at least one part isn't, but most of what you hear singing out of Rami is Freddie Mercury and not Rami. In this Elton John pick, it sounds like I can't remember who's the actor who's playing him, guys. I just drew a blank. Sorry, somebody out there will know. Tell me here in a moment. I don't think he sounds or looks anything like Elton John, so that's the only thing that really doesn't matter. Aiden Gillian as John Reed. Yeah. Rianne, some questions. Are you asking? Are you referring to something else, or you have some? uh. Rianne, they do kind of get to that point where it's like I said, they do a very, I can't believe like saying this, but they did a very good job depicting Freddie as we know him, knew him, however you want to put it. And that, even though they don't specifically say he's not from this earth, you get that kind of feeling that they really understood that about him. Elton John is a guy. Taron Egerton, thank you so much. Tyler Bioshock. Yeah, I don't know. Wolverine fangirl, which would be Sarah out of the group. Sarah, I have a feeling that this is going to kick Rocket Man's ass. Rocket Man to me looks like just too much of a Mamma Mia type thing. I don't know why I brought that up, but that's what it reminded me of. With all of just the way it's, I don't know. Well, I've actually talked about this a little longer than I planned on because I do have some work to get done here. But is there any more questions you guys have for me? I know you're sticking around. I probably wouldn't even have went live with this if I didn't like the movie, to be honest with you. That's kind of why I did, because I know a lot of you out there who know me are probably really surprised. And yeah, Mecha Random, I think Queen, not only that, Queen has probably a lot more hits, even though Elton John has tons of hits, don't get me wrong. They probably have more well-known hits than Elton John does. Baghead 777, was Freddie gay? Yes. Well, I thought you said you saw it, Baghead. Why are you asking me these questions? Oh shit. All right, well, take care, Ian, and anybody else who's checking out, I'm going to probably check out here real soon. I'm just going to stick around and see if you guys have any more questions for me, and then I'll probably wrap this up. Wait a minute. What are you talking about, Tyler Bioshock? I don't know if I've heard about this. So after riding high on Queen, how excited for the Yoko John Lennon pick that will depict him as Jesus? I don't know if you're making a joke because he had the whole Beatles Jesus thing, or if there's actually a biopic coming out that I'm just becoming aware of. Philip A. Demick, I actually bought the soundtrack before the movie came out, and there's a reason for that. The soundtrack is great, actually. Even if you're a Queen fan and you own pretty much all the stuff you can own, there's stuff on the soundtrack you cannot get anywhere else. And that being there's a smile. I think there's one Smile song on there, yeah, and then a complete Live Aid performance is a big deal on there because that is the first time, as far as I know, that it's ever been available on CD. So that's kind of cool. Why is the sky blue, CD Horde? I don't know. No, that's not why I'm here. Don't fear the Reaper, dude. Let's see here. Mecha Random says Elton John seemed to play more on soft rock stations. Queen were pretty much everywhere. They span more genres than Elton John. Yeah, yeah. And it's funny in the scene where they're writing. Well, it's already written, but they're about to do another one bites the dust. What's funny about that is, they keep bringing up disco, and to me, another one bites the dust was one of the first mainstream rap albums, and nobody really, I don't think, really kind of thinks about it until somebody says it. But if you listen to the song and how it's structured and the way Freddie's actually rapping more than he's singing, and it's set up more like a rap song than it is a disco song, it's pretty much a rap song. But anyway, yeah. So let's see here. Macarano says she has the two main best of discs. I don't know. I prefer Sparks to Queen, but I'm much better. I know why people like Queen. Another one, Rides the Bus. Yeah. Little Weird Al there. Friday evening. We've been a little busy. There hasn't been a shit ton of news, so that's why we've been just between trying to get another Star Trek video done for you guys and some other things. It's been kind of cramped. So yeah. Yeah, the disco album was 2 years after Another One Bites the Dust. Yeah, that part was just kind of funky. I don't know why they did it that way. But I was a little upset they didn't have the Under Pressure story in there because that's one of the more famous stories. Maybe that's why, because that's one of the more famous stories. But yeah, I don't know if offhand there's anything I would have been like, I really wish they would have covered that. They hit pretty much most of the main beats. So I can't complain about that. I mean, it's kind of like when you favorite bands and they play pretty much every song you want to hear. So I mean, there's a few you wished you could have heard, but they played the right ones, so it's all that matters. Freddie got fingered on Kush. No, they didn't show Freddie getting fingered in the movie, but I know the movie you're referring to, the Tom Green one. I love We Are the Champions. Another one rides the bus. Let's see here. Dallas Buyer Club director is going to do it. Ringo and Paul are not involved. Yoko is producing. Oh, goody. Andre's going to have, or Rob's going to have some fun with that one, Tyler. Yeah, you guys are going to have to excuse me. I'm going on very little sleep. I've had about 4 hours of sleep in between work and trying to work on this video at the same time. So, yeah. Daddy, do you want some sausage? CD Horde, I would imagine we probably will review Star Trek Discovery Season 2. We got to finish up Season 1 yet. I have a feeling we'll have that done here in the next month, though, of course, because Season 2 starts soon. So be prepared. Yoko, no! Yeah, that's what the movie should be called. Oh, boy. Okay. Anyway, guys, you don't seem to be going anywhere, though. That's the thing. So you must be listening to me. So, or maybe you fell asleep. About 30 of you fell asleep, maybe. Because I can't imagine this many people listening to me ramble on for this long. It's just strange. I don't know how Mecha does it and how Doomcock does it now. I know, I guess. But anyway, boy, Freddie would be quite different with Mercury. Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna wrap this up, guys. Check out our Patreon if you want to support us. Hit that like button. Make sure the bell icon is clicked there. If you obviously got the announcement, then you're still subscribed at least. But you know how YouTube is, so you always got to check. Always got to check. So yeah. But anyway, I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me here. This was really fun, for just yakking to you guys a little bit here in the chat, and I'm surprised I like the movie. I am. I really am. So yeah, and let me know what you guys think of it in the comments and stuff. Did you like it? Did you hate it? For those of you who didn't like it, I know there's a few in Baghead 777. You said you didn't like it, and that's too bad. And I can tell you're a really big fan, and I totally respect that and appreciate that. So You know, obviously everybody's opinion is valid in the sense that if you didn't, I totally understand that. I did not expect to. I was surprised, but I was also expecting a huge fucking train wreck. And I was surprised to win any Oscars, but check it out. You could do worse with $10 in 2 hours. So yeah, if you're even somewhat of a Queen fan, you'll probably at least enjoy yourself. I can give you that much. So I hear my biggest fan, CD Horde. Well, that's cool. Just don't turn into a stalker now. No, just kidding. I don't mind having a few stalkers. Anyway, take care, guys. Thanks for joining me on this really, I don't know if I call it quick broadcast. It's been almost an hour now, at least 40 minutes or so or better. But yeah, take care and see you guys next time here on Midnight's Edge After Dark.